Oh, that was because our second unit came in with that defensive intensity, being active in passing lanes, rim protecting, also getting deflections, as well as contesting all shots. And on the offensive end, we did a good job of converting the transition, drives to the basket where it was either dump offs or finishes at the basket. And then Joy Baker, he really made some outside shots that really opened it up.
Good afternoon, everybody. That was Michigan basketball coach Juwan Howard after the Wolverines win over the Cornhuskers last night at the Crisler Center in Ann Arbor. Thanks to mgoblue.com for the audio. Hearing the coach's thoughts after the game. Hard to disagree with anything that he had to say there. The second unit, the defense, or the offense, and Michigan able to get that dub, and they needed it. And now it's on to Indiana. Welcome in. We'll be talking about some Michigan hoops today. Good afternoon, Michigan football and basketball. And we do have some football to discuss in terms of a rivalry. I threw a question at you. If you're already watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see that question. If you have not logged on or you're listening elsewhere after the fact, the question I put out there to you was, how much would you care if U of M and MSU didn't play in football every year? Now, you might think, well, why would you ask that question? That seems kind of crazy. You might be right about that. Let me tell you what we're going to be talking about today. The Michigan football and basketball. Basketball, we'll look at last night's game against Nebraska, give you some news and views, and then we'll look ahead to Indiana. We'll just talk about the rest of the regular season and the Big Ten tournament and the possibility of Michigan getting into the NCAA tournament, as we'll go over everything with the Wolverines from A to Z. But we're going to start with Michigan and Michigan State in football. Last week, there was a tweet that came out from somebody that I wasn't familiar with. He had an emoji, and he called himself the headline Big Ten football schedule. And he had all of the Big Ten teams with USC and UCLA. I say he, the person had USC and UCLA coming in. And all of the teams were able to pick three rivals, protected games. Three protected games. I might have to say that, rivals. And the interesting part about it, I don't know if this was what this person would have picked or if they actually had some insight. But so you immediately go to Michigan and Michigan State. Now, he didn't spell Michigan right, this guy or person, but it was an interesting three protected games. Ohio State, I think everybody would agree with that. Minnesota, the battle for the little brown jug, and then UCLA, the new addition. Michigan, would they protect UCLA? Would you be okay with that? And the first thought is, wait a second, what about Michigan State? And then, well, what about Michigan State? Michigan State, for their side, their protected rivalries, no Michigan. They picked Nebraska, Penn State, and Purdue. Now, would these be the selections for you? Could these have been the selections for Michigan? Would the Big Ten allow Michigan and Michigan State not to play every year? Would you be okay with that? Now, those are an awful lot of questions. The validity of this person's protected games, if this really is what the teams are thinking, is this what the Big Ten would allow, and then where you're at in. So there's a lot of different pieces to that and elements that you can weigh in on. And there's an immediate thought, and I looked to the Maize and Blue review posting board, the Den. They were talking about this very subject a few days ago, and almost every person on there, now they're all Michigan fans, almost every Michigan fan on the Den was saying, screw I'll sum it up. Screw MSU. I don't want to play MSU every year anyways. Things like the rivalry has been too toxic. Forget it. that this thing has gone too far. Let's not play them every year. They don't need Michigan State and this rivalry in football every season. Drop it. And that was the basic thought, the prevailing thought of almost every person that weighed in. There wasn't one person that said, yes, let's keep this, but no way. Let's all, now you have to climb into the mind of a Michigan fan and how they feel about Michigan State to even put Michigan State on a theoretical protected list means that you are noting them, that you are looking at them, that you're thinking about them, and that you're giving them some credit, of being, a rival. And in a lot of people's minds, like, they don't want to go there. They don't want to include Michigan State and everything. In fact, it's such a rivalry that I'll just not let them take up any space in my thoughts, and we won't include them at all. Screw them. Now, some people, I think, are being honest, and you'd like everybody to be honest. I'm asking you to be honest about if you'd like to see them play every year. And you might just say, I'll take a break. I don't need Michigan and Michigan State every year. It's more trouble than it's worth. I don't know what your thoughts are. That's why I'm asking you. Maybe you feel like a lot of other people that, it's just the way that it is right now. People at each other's throats. Just where we're at in 23. Just take a couple of years off. There wouldn't be any harm in that. Now, I'll give you my thoughts, and then I'll take some feedback on it. My first thought is that when it comes to football, you're never too far off in thinking about the money that it generates for each school and for the TV contracts that Michigan and Michigan State enjoy with the Big Ten and the Big Ten Network and elsewhere, and the amount of money that is thrown their way. It's incredible. What is it? $75 million a piece, I think they get before they ever before a ticket is sold. It's an incredible amount of cash. And do you think that there's any way that TV would look to this annual game and say, let's not have Michigan and Michigan State? Michigan, Minnesota would be great. It would bring the same kind of eyeballs, the same kind of excitement. Even saying that, I think you have your answer. Like, you may not want to give Michigan State football the time of day. Maybe you're not somebody that enjoys the daily trolling online back and forth, or the insults on the talk shows or posting boards. Maybe that's not your cup of tea, but maybe you do enjoy the game part. There are a lot of people, I would say, obviously, that do like all of those aspects of it. I'd say the hate, the embracing of the hate. I was thinking about all of the other teams and rivalries in college football, and which one compares the closest to Michigan and Michigan State. So you'd have to have the two teams in the same conference, because there's a lot of teams and schools that hate each other, like Michigan and Michigan State. And I say hate, I'm just saying it. I think to the state of Pennsylvania, they love their football, and for years, like from Pittsburgh and Penn State, and how they didn't want to play each other, and Penn State was independent, like they wouldn't even, they couldn't bring themselves, but they weren't in the same conference. I think down in the state of Texas, like all of the different schools that are from Texas, the Texas A&M and all that, they all hate each other. They don't want to play each other, and most of them, they're not in the same conference. So then there's a reason for that, because they hate each other so much they don't want to play every year. And then the state of Florida, there's no bigger state for football than Florida. Miami, Florida State, and in Florida, they're not in the same conferences. So, you have, you don't get that, even though they do play and overlap sometimes. So I don't know, like what was the Civil War? They don't call it that anymore. I believe it was Oregon and Oregon State. I don't know. I don't watch. I don't know if I've ever watched the Civil War. It takes place on Rivalry Saturday with Michigan State, and Auburn and Alabama, and then tucked in at night is I believe, or the Civil War, or the Apple Cup, which is Washington and Washington State, and really nothing against the Great Northwest or the Pac-12. Those never really did it for me. I don't know. Are those as intense of in-state rivals? I did notice on the sheet that with USC and UCLA coming in, that both the Trojans and the Bruins selected one another. Like you would think, yeah, they're going to play. I mean, that's a rivalry that you'd want to keep intact. California, the rivals. You get that part. With Michigan and Michigan State, is it like? I think it is a little bit of like the Iron Bowl, Alabama and Auburn, except that Auburn is pretty good once in a while. Like, I don't know, once every 5 years, certainly once every 10 years, like good enough like to contend for a championship. And then Alabama has been the class of college football for, I don't know, for as long as Nick Saban has been there. So for at least 10 years, they've been, and really Michigan nor Michigan State can match them. And then, but they are in the same state, but it's the last Saturday, which makes it a little bit different. So I'm not 100% sure which one is the closest. And if people outside the state of Michigan are like, oh boy, I'm going to watch this one. I'm going to watch this one, Michigan State. Early in the season, there's Iowa and Iowa State, but is that one that you're tuning in saying, oh man, these two schools hate each other? Not really. I don't. So nationally, I don't know how it plays, but I do know this part about the state of Michigan and just how many people are going to watch it. And I do think next year, because of the tunnel situation, that next year's game, I would think that would be the highest rated U of M MSU football game ever. Doesn't even matter what the records are going to be. Michigan's is going to be pretty good. Michigan State's probably not going to be pretty good, but I still think because of that and everything else, oh my gosh, what's everybody going to say? And it'll be this, across the country, people have to look on and say, okay, maybe these guys if they're going to fight in the tunnel, maybe somebody's going to swing a helmet. I don't know, like that. It'll be an attraction. So that is my thought on it. Let's get some of the feedback in and what people are thinking about Michigan and Michigan State, the possibility of them not playing. Would you be in favor of that? How much would you care if U of M and MSU didn't play football every year? I told you the business side, like I don't think that it's going to happen, despite this protected rivalry list. And even if that was the real protected rivalry list, I think the Big Ten would get in and say, you guys have to play each other every year, or the TV demands it, we demand it. And then they'd have to say, oh, okay, then we will do it. But I like it anyways. And, all of the different stuff about, the nastiness online and the talk shows and the posting boards and the insults back and forth. I like football. And I like a Saturday for a Michigan game that carries some interest. I like when there's a lot on the line. And I know we talked about the non-conference schedule last year, in the years ahead, Michigan is supposed to play Texas and Oklahoma. Those games, you look ahead, I know that the other games, like Michigan playing like Arkansas State or something, that's not doing it for me. I know it's a dub, and some people just care about the dubs. And in fact, they don't want to play a game that they could possibly lose. To me, everything about college football, I look through and say, oh, there's an interesting game. And on the Michigan schedule, one thing that without even knowing what kind of team Michigan or Michigan State, or record that they're going to bring in, that there's going to be a lot on the line. That your friends or whoever you work with and everywhere, that if you lose for a year, you just have to deal with so much, garbage that, and that part really sucks. But when you win, it's nice. And there's so that part all stacked up on the line in the anticipation like that For me, it's great. And having, you go to those games and the atmosphere is off the charts. I remember the first couple of times, you'd go and this maybe even was before, say maybe it was before, like, posting boards and Scott Bell, troll jobs and whoever the equivalent is for Michigan State, and everybody, back and forth, and Walmart Wolverines. Before any of that, it was still like, wow, man, you're going to go to a tailgate and, people are going to be fighting. And then you go to a tailgate, both in Ann Arbor and East Lansing, and you're like, wow, man, Michigan and Michigan State fans are all hanging out together. Wow, they're all partying. They're all tailgating together. And then you think, like, this is, I don't know if it's a small minority or if it's even a minority, but people that are going to the games, they're hanging out. It's like being at work, Do all the Michigan fans go to one side? You have to work. And in some cases, you have to go to family gatherings where there's Michigan State fans that are going to be involved, and you have to get along with them. I mean, you go to a wedding and not go, oh yeah, there's my cousin Scott. He's a Sparty. I'm not going to tell you. So I don't know. Maybe you do. And sometimes when you look online and see as much hatred as there is, you would think that, what do these people do at social gatherings? They immediately out. Now I know there are people that like that, and there's a part of it, I don't know if you respect it, it makes you laugh. There was, the coach at that Oklahoma State. I'm a man. I'm 40. There was the story about somebody was coming to mow his lawn, and he had a Oklahoma shirt on. I don't know if he was mowing his lawn, whatever he was doing. He said, "Take that shirt off. You're not mowing my lawn." Oh, that's a pretty diehard fan. I had a friend who had something going on in his basement, maybe the heater or something, and the guy was down there, brought his tool belt in, everything was down in the basement. And my friend looked outside and noticed that noticed that the car that he was driving was a foreign car. And my friend worked at Ford, and he opened up the door and he said, "Hey, buddy, out. You got to get out of here. You're driving a foreign car." The guy was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not having anybody in here." And that's diehard. That's a diehard. I'm not like that. There's a part of it you say, "Wow, man, that guy's really, really into it. Man, he's really backing, American-made product, really backing Michigan, or really backing Oklahoma." But, those are some of my thoughts. Lyle is one of my favorite feedback. Lyle is saying that Hutch, R-O-W. Are you saying that Aiden Hutchinson has won the Rookie of the Year in the NFL? That would be pretty big news, Lyle. So I will, I'll confirm that. Lyle would be okay with Michigan and Michigan State not playing every year. Let's see about this Aiden Hutchinson. I got people complaining on this feed. Let's just let's take some more feedback in. Richard is, you can see if you're watching, you can read what he has to say while I type in Hutchinson. Oh, there it is, Aiden Hutchinson. Let's see what it has to say here. Such an honor to be named the 2022 Pepsi Zero Rookie of the Year. Is Pepsi Zero Rookie of the Year NFL Rookie of the Year? I don't know that answer. Is the NFL Rookie of the Year just sponsored by the Pepsi Zero Rookie of the Year? I don't know. It's a nice accomplishment anyways. Congratulations. And maybe that tells that he will be the NFL Rookie of the Year. But the Pepsi Zero Sugar Rookie of the Year. Congratulations to Aiden Hutchinson. Richard says, "Don't start talking about changing rivalry games, please. This game is a must." There you go. See, that's honest. Richard, I ask for honesty and you give it. Jason, who I also consider very honest and somebody that I also look forward to hearing from on a weekly basis, he says, "I would care if they didn't play every year. It's a great in-state rival. and great for college football as a whole. We've already lost ND. I'd rather not get rid of MSU as well. Ooh, it's the first time that I thought of ND, Jason, and it's a great point. And having grown up with that rivalry, you're right. And I know they're going to play. Is it 28? Or 38? Like so far down the line. Maybe with the college football playoff, they'll play again, and it'll be off the charts. But yeah, what's one of the great rivalries in all of college football? People got tired of Notre Dame and saying, the hell with Notre Dame and everything else. And I would say all that, like, let's not play Notre Dame. They're never going to join the Big Ten. The hell with them. All of that all year long. But then that Saturday would come and it would be great. It would be great. That's a good point about Notre Dame. Scott would protect Ohio State, Penn State, and USC. Hopefully, OJ will attend a game at the Big House. Well, Scott, as much as I like it, I've said, like, hey, I'm all about the anticipation of a big game and a rivalry and all that. You do also have to consider, like, all those games would be great, but what's everybody else playing? Like, what if Ohio State is not playing, USC and they're playing like two perceived easy games? You're asking for not getting into the college football playoff. But if I'm going to err, after saying all that, I'll err like you, Scott. Line me up for the best games. Line me up for the best non-conference games. Because if I do go through and run through the gauntlet and able to win it, man, to me, it'll be that much more special. So a lot of people, it's not like that. And you're asking for a loss. And then in how much do people really go back? I used to always say this when the Red Wings. I want the Wings to play the Avs. I want the Wings to play the Stars. I want the Wings to play the best. And everybody else was like, let's just play the easiest schedule possible. Nobody cares about, they just say how many, not who. That's the saying. And there's a little bit of a point to that. Like, you want to win the championship. Are you really looking back to say, oh, yeah, we beat. I base it, though, on 97 for Michigan. Heading into that season, there was a time that Colorado was looked at as, this great foe for Michigan. And then they had Notre Dame and they had Baylor. So all Power Five. There was no, even though Baylor, you looked at that and you figured that it was going to be an easier game, but not so much Colorado and certainly not Notre Dame. It wasn't Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn, or East Carolina, UNLV, and BG. How much do people care? Your rivals care, and like college football media that is outside of Michigan, they care. They're like, your schedule is really soft. And then it gets to where, yeah, but look at the SECs. Look at the bottom three that Alabama, and look at the bottom three that Georgia plays. Like, the three teams that Georgia played were, equally as bad as Michigan. It's just that the Big Ten has to play an extra. They played 9 conference games, where then Georgia went out and scheduled Oregon, and everybody, it's like they forget that. They're like, yeah, but Georgia scheduled Oregon. It's like, yeah, but their other 3 games were all a bunch of easy ones, just like Michigan. That's an aside. But it's again scheduling talk. Jason, it's a trophy game. That is important to those kids for sure. Oh, you mean this trophy? The Paul Bunyan Trophy? Remember, it was Jim Scarcelli who joined us yesterday. I don't know if there was talk of this or this was just his thought. Scar said, maybe they shouldn't bring out the trophy after the game. Maybe they, just have it afterwards. Because it's like a matchstick. I don't know if it was a matchstick this year, or the tunnel was a matchstick, or you just had rogue players that were looking for a fight. Whatever you thought about, how it was going to happen. I never noticed this axe that's between Paul Bunyan's legs before. Is that always there? That looks actually dangerous. It's probably not a real axe. I don't think it's a real axe. And maybe it's just a prop. But I would be again. I like, it's great for pictures. Look at this. Like if Michigan didn't get the Paul Bunyan trophy and have the maize pants on, and then later, put the winged helmet on. It's just great. It's great for the fans. It's great for photos. I would be against that. You have to. Like, this gets back to the tunnel stuff. Like, it's football. I mean, like, all of this, like, it's too toxic. Everybody hates each other. You need to be able to, even though it's sports, the players need to be able to display some sportsmanship. And that involves being able to leave the field of play, and not have what happened last year. That's going to be on the players and the coaching staffs. And, the fans, it's you can't tell hey, why don't you show some class? I mean, who am I talking to or about? But you should be able to bring a trophy out and celebrate with your teammates. And you should be able to get safely to your locker room. I know these things sound like it's just gone too far. You have to make an effort to be able to do that. As bad as it hurts, you must be able to take the trophy out, play the games, and then move on with your life. Even if you don't feel great the next day. Or if you go back, like I can, to Halloween night of the pandemic season 2020, when Michigan lost to Michigan State, when everybody thought, myself included, that they were going to beat. I mean, they were a 30-point favorite, close to that, and then lost that game. That made for a tough Halloween night. But you got to wake up the next day and you got to deal with life. It's like people don't want to deal with it. It's a great thing. We do this for entertainment. For sports. When I see people like, oh yeah, this thing's gone too far. Like, what are we talking about? Like, we can't play a football game because everybody hates each other too much. Ryan says no. Why would we play UCLA every year? We don't care about them at all in Minnesota. It's fine being every once in a while. That game doesn't matter either. Yeah, well, people will say, yeah, it's a trophy game. Little Brown Jug. Yeah, they don't play Minnesota every year anyways. I'm with you. I mean, if you're asking me specifically, would you rather see Michigan State? If I'm looking forward to right now, because Michigan is at Minnesota next year. Am I looking forward to Michigan State or Michigan Minnesota? Michigan State. That's going to bring the intensity. Now, you can make an argument UCLA like, oh, recruiting, California, the Rose Bowl, a great trip. That's not the question about having a great trip and going to the Rose Bowl. Would I rather see, it's what's more exciting, Michigan State or Michigan UCLA? You're correct, Ryan. Excellent point. I think everybody so far has made great points. Scott says Scar wants the Wisconsin game protected. Lyle talking about there's that recruiting angle. You need that game for recruiting. If you really need that game for recruiting, Lyle, then what's the point of having 3 home games, East Carolina, UNLV, and BG? Are you really attracting an Ohio audience playing Bowling Green? Are you really getting that greater Vegas area? I want to. No, those are dubs, and you're just collecting money on that. If recruiting was such a big deal out there, schedule a game out in California. Schedule US. No, we don't want to do that. I hear that part, and I think there is some truth to that. But when you look ahead, now that you're going to have a 12-team playoff, you're going to run into teams where, maybe you'll have a home game, which will be great, and you'll be bringing USC in to play in the big house. That would be awesome. You're bringing Oregon in to play in the big house, maybe Alabama, all of Texas. It's going to be great. You're going to get some of that, hopefully more often than not. But you'll also have Michigan, having to travel for that playoff game. They may have to go down to Florida State and play. That'll all, if you're taking care of business, if you're TCB in it, you'll get those games. Ryan says we don't need to recruit California. A new person on the feedback says, and it's Bloom, who says MSU at least cares about football. That's not going to be the case with UCLA long term. Yeah, well, UCLA, they've got the greatest setting in college football. They got the weather of the boot, which is part of the setting there for the Rose Bowl, and yet they got a 25% capacity. So I hear what you're saying about that. People in California, they don't care about sports. They've got the great weather. They've got the beach, and they've got the mountains, and they've got Hollywood, and I don't know. I was going to say bikinis. That's part of it. I went out there. I had the feeling. My first trip out to the Rose Bowl, I went there, and I was just like, wow, this is awesome. The night before, I went to the beach. In the middle of the night, the moon was out. I'm like, this is pretty nice. The next day, I went to the beach on my way down to San Diego. And I would look over to the left, and I would see the mountains. And I would look over to the right, and I would see the beach. And then I was down on the beach and had my toes in the sand. And I didn't even care that Michigan lost the Rose Bowl to USC that year. I was like, who cares about a football game? Let's go for another round. No. People don't care as much about football in California. I'm with you, Bloom. It's a good point. Andres, who just cares about winning football games. He doesn't care about the schedule. I know him. Let's see. This is his first feedback of the day. He says only necessary protected game is OSU. The rest should be rotations. How about that? Just one. Let's see here. I think we're getting some repeat. We're on it. A couple more. We'll go back. Todd, the only Big Ten East. Only the Big Ten East is rigged, so the major programs play yearly. You've got no argument, but that's about to change. And that's the whole thing with Michigan State. There are people that are Michigan fans that don't like Michigan State fans so much that the only thing that they don't like about USC and UCLA coming in is they fear that Michigan State's going to avoid Ohio State, and now the potential of avoiding Michigan as well. You're Michigan State, and you avoid Ohio State, Michigan, and let's see. According to this list, we'll just go on this list as a guide. It's not set in stone or anything. Does Michigan State? They don't even have USC. Look at these Michigan State games. Nebraska, Penn State, and Purdue. Woo, that's a real juggernaut for the Sparties. And there's a lot of people that look at it like that and say, hey, who cares about Michigan State? Well, when you only have to beat, what kind of schedule? Michigan State one year is going to have Northwestern, Minnesota, Rutgers, and then they'll have Purdue, Nebraska, and Penn State. Maybe toss in Indiana in there for MSU. And Mel Tucker is going to be up there like, oh, we really played a real tough schedule. So that's it. Sometimes you think about that part. Marcus says each Big Ten schedule should include 2 team rivalries each year, played no matter what. Then a 6-team rotation one year and another 6-team rotation the next. May have to eliminate on NC game. What's NC mean? National championship game? May have to eliminate on a national. Yeah, I mean, the pod systems that I've seen out there. I would like to see Ohio State and Michigan State every year. And then beyond that, if there is a third team, like would I pick USC? Like, whoa, you're really asking for it. Or then I assume Minnesota because they're going to probably not be any good. You try to pick an easy team in there. I think the reality of that, even if I was standing up saying, yeah, let's go, USC, that's going to be awesome. There's going to be a lot of other people that saying, look, you've got the two rivalry games. Let's take a third one that's going to be a little bit probably more manageable because that's what everybody else is going to do. Not everybody else is just, let's pick the hardest teams. So as much as I said that, and that's what I would want, I understand the argument, and I think that's the way it would go. And I'm not pounding the table for that, saying, oh, you do have to try to, balance the scales at times. Todd is indicating that Michigan in the East would go to the championship nearly every game. Same goes to OSU and Penn State. Yeah, if they were playing in the Big Ten East. He meant Big Ten West. That's right. Antoine is a little bit like Andres. Antoine's schedule would indicate, let's see, here's Antoine's. He likes East Carolina, UNLV, BG. He liked the non-conference schedule last year. And if Antoine was picking the protected rivals, he would pick Northwestern, Purdue, and Rutgers. That's what Antoine wants. Michigan, East Carolina, UNLV, BG, Northwestern, Purdue, and Minnesota for Antoine. That's who he wants to see. Hey, he's consistent. I'll give him that. And you can say I haven't, Banks. I'm talking about strength, but then I'm looking at the other side. Antoine wants the easiest games possible. He wants to win the championship. He's ready to fast forward right now to the Michigan-Ohio State game of the next season, get right to the Big Ten title game, right to the college football playoffs. Forget all those other teams or those other games. Screw it. Let's just do it. Steve says dump them. Scott with a AD hot dog eating contest. I'm betting the over. Well, rest in peace, George Perlis. He wants a former AD hot dog eating contest. 10 hot dogs is too many. It's 3 hot dogs. It's about right. Scott, let's be honest about that. Let's see. Richard is okay with not playing MSU every year. Just keep OSU. See, there it is. Eddie, who we all enjoy his feedback and his thoughts on a weekly basis. Eddie says it would be horrible to not play Sparty every year, and I hate Sparty. Scott talking about the females at each school. I think Michigan State. While I agree, that Michigan State has it's a great looking school. Michigan has come a long way in that regard. Antoine says everybody likes to hate on Michigan. Michigan's got more problems than anyone. Yeah, well, I mean that's part of it. But Michigan, when you have a really popular school, you're going to have a lot of opinions on it. Is there a daily, Michigan State podcast? Look at how many is like, how many people are mulling over Michigan State football every day? I don't know. When you have a popular team, you're going to have a lot of opinions on it. Michigan's like that. Otis weighing in. He's a heavyweight. Notre Dame doesn't deserve to play Michigan after their classless way of ending the contract. There you go, Otis. That's right. Todd following it up with another shot at Notre Dame. Screw them. They want to play? Michigan joined the Big Ten. Yeah, that's right, Todd. And, Todd indicating that Georgia doesn't play Alabama every year. Let's go. OT. I think there is no bigger Michigan fan that watches this show than OT. He doesn't even like one little, like if I would talk about the Kevin Durant trade to the Suns, OT would, what are you talking about? This is a Michigan pod. Don't talk about Kevin Durant. He didn't go to Michigan. OT says, I would care a lot if Michigan and Michigan State didn't play every year ever since the Big Ten switched to D. Switch to divisions. He got cut off there. I think that's what he meant. Right? Are we going to start calling these games placement games? I don't know. AJ says Michigan plays UCLA for recruiting purposes, undoubtedly. We'll be out there recruiting quarterbacks since that's where the majority of them come from. The majority of quarterbacks come from Cali? I used to think that the majority of quarterbacks came from Pennsylvania or Texas. But yeah, there's a lot in Cali. Are there more than from Texas? Or Pennsylvania? We'd have to look that up. All right, couple more here, and then we'll get to basketball. Jason says, try and schedule all the teams we've played, yet never beaten. Arizona State, Kansas State, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Toledo. Start a revenge tour. I know, far-fetched. Well, hey, Jason, maybe that's what Ward is doing, because over the next couple of years, Texas and Oklahoma are on the schedule. And Toledo's doing a nice job in the MAC, but I wouldn't mind seeing a Rockets game. I don't care too much about K-State or Arizona State or Mississippi. But I like the – and Tennessee. I would like that one too. That's for sure. All right. It looks like, which happens sometimes, that we could talk about this all day long. Lyle making a good point about Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns. That Ishbia bought the Suns, so I'll be rooting against them. So that's where you get a little rivalry running deep. So do you root against the Pistons though? Because the Pistons owner is a Michigan State guy. See, that's a tough one. I get, Dan Gilbert owning the Cavs. I mean, that's a double whammy. He's a Sparty and he owns an Ohio team. Hate the Cavs, for sure. They're from Cleveland. You'd hate them if they were just from Cleveland. You would hate them, for the MSU angle. Ishbia. It's so far out there in the desert that you think, is there really anything to hate Matt Ishbia about? But that's hardcore. I'll give you that. You're rooting against the Suns because Matt Ishbia. Why do you think Lincoln Riley went out to California? I think he went out there because it's California and it's money. A lot of and it's California's great. Nice place to visit. Nice place to go. When I was out there, I'm like, wow, man, this is the dreamland. And everybody out there, it's great if you have money. A lot of people would say that because I'd be like, I can't believe how great it is out here in California. And then they would all say, yeah, if you got money. Lincoln Riley got a lot of money. USC, a lot of money. Southern California. It's not the quarterbacks, AJ. It is not the quarterbacks because Lincoln Riley can bring a quarterback in from, I don't know, Mississippi. Nothing against Mississippi, but it's not Cali. Antoine going with the recency bias of Stroud and Young coming from Cali. Yeah. Does Antoine Walker go to DB, it is being rumored. You mean Amorian Walker? That's what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah, well, he played a little bit there last year. They experimented with that. So, and then he had this fabulous 3-cone where it helps to be able to cut on the dime and be really super athletic to be a wide receiver. That helped, but it also really helps when you're a DB, change of direction, everything that you can do there vertically. And there's an opening at defensive back. So I think that Michigan would be smart to try anyone who wants to get on the field. If you have a lot of depth at one position and you have an uncertainty in another, and somebody wants to try out playing that position and they have a skill set that way, why not? So I would have to see how he looks. As it was pointed out yesterday by Richard, it worked pretty well for Mike Sainristil. In fact, it worked great for Mike Sainristil going to wide receiver to corner. So why not? Sounds good to me. That's what OT says. After the 3 cones, sign him up. Get him as a DB. I should have done. I was going to do this. I was looking up the records at the combine for 3-cone, and a former Wolverine, David Long, was on the sheet for the record for the best 3-cone. Long was also on the record for some other superlatives when it came down to the NFL Combine. But as I was looking through the NFL Combine records for, 3-cone, lifts, all these different 40s, all of it, like you would think when you'd look for NFL workout warriors and combine records, that you would think like, oh man, there's a Hall of Famer, there's a Hall of Famer, you'd think, oh, Tyreek Hill, all these names that would be in there. And it's not the case. Even with the 40, they had 15 guys, the top 15 40s that were ever listed at the combine as a record in Indianapolis. And, some of the names, Marquise Goodwin, that's the big name on there. Josh Ross, he ran the record 4.26. Even though I thought Dion, maybe they didn't have an official, so maybe it was before. If you'd have seen Dion's name there, you'd been like, oh, okay, well, there's a Hall of Famer. There's the greatest cover corner of all time. Nothing like that. It's a bunch of names that you've barely ever heard of. Champ Bailey was on there, 1 out of 14. So you're like, wow. So testing out's great, but it didn't have quite the name recognition that I thought. And almost every discipline that I went through and looked, I'm like, where are all the big names for all these combine dudes? And I know that, you can have a great combine and it can really help you out and move you up. Brian Urlacher, I remember, what was it, New Mexico or something, this guy was a workout warrior. Malai was for the Eagles. There's been a lot of them. Oh man, are you crazy? This the guy's, look at his 3-cone. But it was a surprise that there was the lack of names on there. So that's it. 4.22 is the record. What are you talking about, Venice? Record for what? You mean 3.2? You're talking about a 40. I don't know what you're talking about. I could take a 4.2 shower. Yeah, 4.22 is not a record. Oh, no, maybe you're right. 4.24, I said. I'm sorry, Venice. Here I am criticizing you, making it sound like you don't know what you're talking about. But I thought it was 4.24, but it could be 4.22. Ross is the one that has it. I do know that. And I just don't know when they started, and they have your hand timed, and then you got your laser time, and now they're talking about a GPS time, which I think is better than the laser. I like it. OT's talking about running fast in shorts and running fast knowing you're about to be hit are two different things. True enough, OT. I would like to see all the guys run. They can run in shorts and all that, and do the 3 cones and all that. But then I also think they should put on their uniforms and do it. I would like to see just what the splits, what the difference is. Not just for those players, but then who is the closest. Like with Ross, who ran, the 4.22 or 4.24, is he going to run a 4.2 something in pads, or is suddenly he puts the pads on and he's like 4.44 or something, 4.4, 4.45. Then somebody like Tyreek Hill runs a 4.36, even though he's not on it. Speaks for itself. All right, good talk when it comes down to Michigan State. I believed in you guys today, and you guys brought it. You can also, if you want to know who's bringing it every day in terms of Michigan content and Michigan news and being on top of everything with the Maize and Blue, it's the Maize and Blue Review. And you can jump in and be a member right now. Go to michigan.rivals.com, join up the Maize and Blue Review. And that particular topic that I was talking about, Michigan and Michigan State, and that has been bantied around the last few days on the Den, the Maize and Blue Review. All right, let's get to basketball. The news. Michigan beat Nebraska last night to move to 14-10 and 8-5 in the conference. My views. Michigan had to have that game last night. Everyone played well. They came out great. Hunter Dickinson only scored 2 points in the first half. He was a factor defensively. And Juwan Howard was hitting some shots early, but they didn't need, like you'd say, always got to have Kobe Buffkin and Hunter Dickinson, and that really wasn't the case. Everybody else, Terrence Williams II had his best game probably of the year. And then the guy that we have identified here on Good Afternoon Michigan Football and Basketball, Joey Buckets. Joey Baker off the bench, incredible. Long distance shooting, scoring. He's bringing that. And if Michigan is going to be able to do something here in the remaining games, we've all talked about Baker having to figure in, and he figured in last night. That was awesome to see for the Maize and Blue. Some little lapses and some turnovers, some compete level that if you're really saying, you'd like to see him clean that up, I would agree with you. I mean, it wasn't the perfect game. There were some runs there, a 17-5 run by Nebraska towards the end of the half. You want to clean that up. Another team can have some runs, but that's where your compete level, that's what your experience, that's when you value each possession. You can't allow 17-5 runs. If that was another team, you might have been in trouble. But it wasn't. And they were able to get the job done last night. Second half, Hunter Dickinson, Nebraska went on another mini run, I think an 11-0 run to cut it to a 10-point game. But Hunter Dickinson got an and one, made the free throw, and that was pretty much it. So good job by Michigan. And when you look at the remaining games for the Wolverines, first, let's put up the Maize and Blue Review tournament percentage indicator for Michigan to make the tournament. It is up now to 39%. I have at Michigan being able to get into the tourney. So whenever you think about 39%, you're like, wow, that's kind of low. Or you might think that's pretty optimistic. I don't know. A lot of times they say, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So too is whether you think that is a good shot or a bad shot. It's under 50%, but that's how I feel about Michigan's chances of getting into the tourney. Now they have 7 games left in the regular season and they have 14 wins. If they win, remember the Kyle plan was to win all of the home games and sweep Wisconsin. If they did that, they would have their 3 more wins, 4, which would give them 18 wins heading into Chicago for the Big Ten tournament. And depending on if they get a bye, double bye, have to play on Wednesday, I mean, all of that is still up in the air. But getting 18 wins, and then it feels like 20 is the magic number. 19 maybe, you're sitting there, 19, that's when you start talking about net ranking, quad ones, RPI, everything. Ken Palm, Jerry Palm, all of it. So the Kyle plan is in effect. Win your home games, sweep whiskey. If they do the Kyle plan, just think about it. Michigan has won 3 in a row. The Kyle plan is win your home games and sweep whiskey. So that with the Kyle plan, and Kyle, I don't know if he's still with us or not. Earlier, he did weigh in, but this was last week. Here he is. Oh, I'm sorry, Lyle. The Lyle plan, not the Kyle plan. The Lyle plan is sweep the home game or sweep whiskey, win your home games. So if Michigan had the Lyle plan, that would mean that they would beat Indiana. That would mean 4 in a row. Sweep whiskey on Valentine's Day. That would be 5 in a row. Come back, beat Michigan State 6 in a row. It's going to be like around here if Michigan wins 6 games in a row. All right, then they'll drop one at Rutgers. They come back and beat whiskey. You know how many people are thinking that Michigan's going to be in the tournament if they beat Michigan State, win at whiskey? If they just win their next 3 games, they'll have 6 in a row. They'll be in the tournament. Everybody's view will change around. Jerry Palm, Michael Lombardi, Michigan. Jay Wright was right. They look like a tournament team. They're in the tournament. That's how things, you stack those wins, get that winning streak. That'll be done. Can they accomplish the Lyle plan, their next 3 in a row? And if it's not the Lyle plan of sweeping whiskey, if they win their home games and just one of these 2, the way Indiana's playing at home right now, I watched last Saturday. Assembly Hall was a zoo. Dickie V was there like, oh, this is like when the general was here. It was popping. Champagne. How about they don't get that whiskey game, win your 3 home games, and then go to Champagne for a victory. How about that? A lot of ways that it can get done. The Lyle plan is just one. I like the Lyle plan, though. Let's see about some feedback basketball-wise. Steve did not like, this is my percentage index indicator, 39%. He has it at 40%, so we're not so far off, Steve. AJ, I watched that game. They ran plays. It's amazing how easy the game is if you run plays and play unselfishly and stop jacking up threes like you're at the Y. Well, Michigan jacked up a lot of threes last night, AJ, but they made them. Jacking them and making them is okay. It's when you go dry, but they did run some plays. They've done their work in Dickinson, and Nebraska is a lot more like than Ohio State that wasn't doubling Dickinson, which is is not what is going to happen down the stretch here. Other teams are going to be running 2 and even 3 guys at them like Nebraska. And what was Dickinson doing? Turning opposite quickly, making a strong pass. And you know what they were doing, AJ? They were sticking their J's from downtown. I know Juwan would talk about playing defense, and that's going to, make them better on offense. And, Michigan scored a season-high 93 points last night. Every coach says that. That's coaches. We play defense, that'll make our offense. In almost any sport, actually. I don't know. They all talk like that. All of them. It would also be true, and it would sound very cliche. Like if I was the coach and they said in there and they said, hey, what did you think the key to the game? Brian Bush, what did you think the key to the game was, coach? Was it the great defensive effort? I'd say, no, we stuck those J's when we were jacking them up. We were jacking and knocking them down. Bush, that was the name of the game. Jack and score. Maybe, that's not the way I would say it. Shoot and score. Knock down those J's. Just like you're at the Y. Fire. Splash. Antoine talking about timeouts. Now, if you can just get Juwan Howard to call a timeout when Michigan gets out of order, that would be even better. Antoine did not like the use of timeouts last night. Let's say this. I don't know. I've never asked this question. I'm going to ask everyone right here. If there are people that are in Southeast Michigan, and let's say Michigan gets into the Big Ten tournament, can we watch a game together? Can I take the show on the road? I don't know where Antoine's from. Maybe I could take it at a restaurant near Antoine for the Big Ten tournament. Maybe he won't be on the road. Maybe it'll be in and around Ann Arbor, whatever. And we could watch the Big Ten tournament together. Who's in? Who lives in Southeast Michigan and would go out and watch some basketball? Some Michigan basketball. Antoine and I might be arguing. Antoine would be like, we need a timeout. No. They need to shoot. That's my idea of fun. Watching basketball out at a restaurant or something. I disagree with this feedback. Michigan isn't beating Indiana. I think that they are going to beat Indiana, Jason. So you and I are going to disagree on that. I guess we'll just have to find out. And Jason again. Who's your Jason? Who's your daddy? 7 Mile. Let's go, Antoine. What's down there on 7 Mile? Are there any spots to watch the game? Maybe we'll have to head a little bit west. 7 Mile. There is a is it a B Dubs? I think there's one out now. It's like 7 Mile in Livonia. I think there might be a B Dubs. That might be the spot. It's about equal distance for you and I. Now I'd have to talk to B Dubs and see if I could set up my computer, or maybe I could do the show and then go out. We'll see. We'll work it. Making it high. Dave, that's why I stopped talking about this. Because I felt like what you were saying. OT, Jets about to do a mellow on college ball. And for those that don't know, you call it when you Carmelo the tournament, Carmelo Anthony took over for Syracuse, and Syracuse won it all with a Carmeloization of the NCAA tournament. Could Jet do it? Jet Carmeloization, Carmeloize, Jettisize? Would have got some work to do. Carmeloize, that's what it was called, right? But mellow. Could happen. Let's do it. Get into the tournament first. Get into that tournament first. That's what's going to have to happen. The one thing that you talk about Michigan and Michigan State, big games and everything else, easy game, cupcake games. Michigan, Indiana on Saturday night. You get rid of the hangover from football. I know we got the Super Bowl on Sunday, Super Bowl weekend, but you turn your attention to basketball, and all eyes now, on basketball. A lot of times it's 6 games to go. There's 7 games to go in the regular season. Michigan right on the cuffs there. They've got the big game against IU. I've been to the Crisler Center for Michigan, Indiana games. The crowd will be the best atmosphere all year long. A Saturday night in Ann Arbor, a must-win for Michigan. The Hoosiers and Mike Woodson coming in. Oh yeah, this is it. This is what you're hoping for. You pour all of your emotion and attention into this game on Saturday night. It's going to be great anticipation. just like a Michigan State football game. Lyle will be watching some hockey. Well, that's what TV is all about. You can flip hockey, basketball, sieve, goalie, basketball, puck. Whatever. Kind of like for me, burgers, pizza, hot dogs, hamburgers. Sometimes it's you got to make tough choices, Lyle. But Michigan State hockey series. That could be one where I don't know what time face-off is, but tip-off is at 6:00. Watch the basketball and then turn over to hockey. You might be able to get both of those in. Could happen. Michigan blows out Indiana early enough at a 6:00 start. Maybe if it's a 7:30, 8:00 start for hockey, you could take the last two periods in. It's all nice. It can be done. Let's do it. We'll set that Saturday night up tomorrow. All right. We'll be talking some football tomorrow and basketball. I promise you about both of those. Thanks so much for joining us. Ooh. 6:00 tip, 8:00 puck drop. That almost, let's not lie. Michigan beats Indiana. They're like, so long. Big victory for the Wolverines. You hit click. Welcome into the Yost Ice Arena, Michigan and Michigan State. We're underway. I mean, the timing is going to be perfect. That's a Saturday. There you go, Lyle. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll be with you tomorrow at 1:00. Till then, so long.